Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And we're going to give some love to the rhythm section. Today, I've got the one and only Victor Indrizzo on the show. I have to be honest with you. We were laughing so hard a second ago. I don't even know if I could look in the camera to look at Victor because I'm going to lose it like I'm in high school. Anyway, a couple of quick announcements. I want to thank our mutual friend, David Levita, for hooking us up. David, thanks very much. Also, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe to subscribe to the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the little emoji that looks like a bell. That helps us get recommended by YouTube, and I really appreciate your support on that. Real quick on Victor. Victor's one of these guys. He's a quintessential, awesome sideman. You've heard him, even if you don't know his name. He's a well-known LA session drummer. He's played on a ton of hit records in like every genre possible: rock, hip hop, country, singer, songwriter, Latin music. I'm going to give you like very, very small. This is a small list of the major artists he's recorded with. He's go to his allmusic.com and you'll see Avril Lavigne. He's played on hit records with Avril, Willie Nelson, hip hop artists Lizzo, Mariah Carey, Depeche Mode, Scott Weiland, Queens of the Stone Age, Chris Cornell, Macy Gray, Liz Phair, Daniel Lanois, Shakira, Aimee Mann, Paul Stanley, Brandi Carlile, Sheryl Crow, Five for Fighting, Alanis Morissette, Beck, Colbie Caillat, Sara Bareillis. He's a great artist. I love her music, and many others. He's also a very successful songwriter and producer. In addition to his other session work, Victor's active recording movie scores and soundtracks, including A Star is Born. Did you work with Brian Allen on that? Bass player?
No, no, on that too. It's funny. I'm like, I do a cameo. I'm in the movie.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm more than playing on the score on that one. Yeah.
What did you do there?
There's just some scene, I haven't even seen the movie, but yeah, I'm just in the house band. I think there was like George Deering, Don Was, and oh man, I'm spacing out like yeah, they're just guys there.
That's so cool. Is that your first movie you were in, or you in other stuff too?
No, there's been a couple where like, they want to have the band in the background and they want actual musicians.
That's cool, man. Yeah. So actor, session player, producer.
Yeah.
Man, your consulting fees just went up like double.
Yeah. I can act like a drummer.
That's awesome. That's more than I can act. Finding Dory. You did the score for that?
I played on some of that. Yep.
That's cool. Sing, Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2, the 40-year-old version, Virgin, Wedding Crashers, Superbad. You worked with Lyle on that, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
That's one of the greatest soundtracks ever. I
mean, his scores are really great. And really, I think I ended up getting into doing a lot of movies through Lyle, really, to tell you the truth. I think from playing on his scores, then other composers like started calling me. It's actually how I ended up learning how to read music, was because I think the first one I did with Lyle was 40-year-old Virgin. And I had a very basic junior high level of reading music, basically. And then I started getting calls from composers. And I had to tell him, I told the first guy, I was like, man, I'm not really a sight reader. I said, like, but if you send me the charts, I'll study them and I'll get it. And then from there, I just kept studying. And now when I go to a session, I can sight read.
That's so cool. What a great skill to pick up later on in your career.
Yeah, I wish that I had, stuck with it as a younger guy. Would have made my life easier. But yeah, it's definitely necessary if you want to play on movie scores.
That's number one musical. Sometimes I ask a question, if you could have changed something, that's the number one response. I wish I would have stuck it out with sight reading a little more amongst, especially baby boomer age guys.
Yeah.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall and tons more. And he was also in front of the camera. This is what I had here in Get Him to the Greek. Oh yeah, and A Star is Born. Sorry. He was in Get Him to the Greek as well. That was a fun movie. Was it fun to make that? Is it fun to watch it?
Super fun. Yeah, we spent about a year working on the music. That's another Lyle score. And I met a great songwriter and friend Mike Viola, who wrote a lot of those songs that are so funny and so good. Yeah, but spent a year recording like different tracks, and a lot of them didn't make it to the movie, but yeah, it was really fun.
Right on, man. Victor's originally from Long Island, New York, and he moved to LA with his mom at age 10. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so glad I got to connect with you. I enjoyed talking with you the first second I spoke with you. You have a great vibe and you're very genuine and real. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
My pleasure. You're originally from Long Island, New York. You moved out to LA with your mom when you were a kid. What prompted that move, and then how did you adjust once you got there? Because they're two pretty different environments.
Yeah. Well, my grandparents had moved out. My grandfather had like a heart condition, and he needed to be in warmer weather, so he moved out, and and so we followed. And I was actually pretty excited because as a kid, I was already into like reading album credits, and I saw that, you know, there were so many records being made in Los Angeles. I was like, let's go. I'm way down. But the funny thing was, when I would go back home for a minute, I had cousins and people would give me shit. They would call me, you know, surfer boy or something because I lived in California. No, I've never surfed in my life. It's like, yeah.
That's funny, man.
But I loved it. And I love living in Los Angeles.
That's cool, man.
You know, there's a lot going on here.
Oh, there certainly is, especially musically, man. And you wouldn't get any acting jobs in Long Island, I'll tell you that much. Man, there's a really cute story I heard. I listened to an interview you did. I think it was you moved to LA, you're like 10 or 11, and you have all this enthusiasm, as you just said, and you call up Capitol Records, and the secretary picks up and you ask her, hi, how much does it cost to make an album? Can you share that story? It's really cute.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like in moving to Los Angeles, I was so excited because I was like, man, the record companies are there. The studios are there. This is going to be it. And even as a little kid, I would draw in notebooks. I would design album covers and write out all the credits. And it was always like I'd put Capitol Records on there. Yeah. So I called up and I asked her how much to make a record, and she started laughing because I think she could tell I was a kid. She just goes, it's a lot of money, honey. And I go, well, how much to make a 45?
Yeah, that was great. That's great.
I want it in.
That's great, man. Did you eventually ever make records in the Capitol building?
Oh yeah, many times.
Did.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's such an, you know, all the studios out here, there's still something, no matter how long I've been doing this, that I have such a reverence for it. And I'm so aware of the history of the buildings. Yeah. And there's just something, it feels like it's all in the walls. And you walk in, it just feels like hallowed grounds to me. And every time I'm there, I am acutely aware of how lucky I am to be there.
That's great.
And how it really is that thing, like I get to do what I dreamt of doing. And really, for me, I can remember being 5 years old and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. There was never anything else.
How is that possible? Like, how did not like that, I'm not like doubting you. I'm like, how did that come about?
I don't know what it was. I think, you know, music was such an escape for me. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because sometimes I think about, you know, I had a pretty tough childhood, and I said, you know, music was like the drug. It was the escape. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe I would have been like that no matter what. I think some people, you're just born with something, or like it just appealed to me so much. Yeah, I don't know. I was a weird kid. Like I just always wanted to listen to records or buy records. I would make my brothers like pretend that they were in a band, and they hate it. They're like, I don't want to be in a band. Like
you're like the youngest.
I was the oldest. I'm like, you're in the band. I was the oldest.
Oh, you're the oldest. Okay. Yeah. Of how many?
Oh God. Well, that's complicated, but I grew up with 2 brothers and a sister, and I have since found many brothers and sisters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's really an amazing
the 70s. Yeah. So how did you finally first get started in the business, and like what was your first break, maybe, or what do you consider your first break?
Well, I suppose when I was 18, I had moved to Hollywood, or maybe I got the job with this band. There was a band called Red Cross. And at that time, I think they were on a label called Big Time, which was part of RCA. And I went and saw this band. I saw them play at the Whiskey, and it was just, man, they blew me away. It was so cool. It was like, it was in the late 80s, but it was like they were more influenced by like the Partridge Family. And like, you know, at the time, all this metal stuff was going on. They were like this weird punk pop kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. Yeah, you should check them out. But
are they still around?
I was like, man, yeah,
they are.
I was like, I want to be in this band. And then I heard they were having auditions. Their drummer left, and it was funny at the time. I was too scared to even figure out how to get in contact with them. You had to send a bio, but like a friend I had at the time wrote a bio for me, sent pictures in, and then I got an audition. And then the audition, I think I made it through the first round, and then the last final thing was I went to the rehearsal, and they're like, side 2, Let It Be, and we played it in order. And I was such a huge Beatle nut that like I think maybe that impressed them, and then I got the gig.
That's so cool.
And then we got signed to Atlantic, and that was like my first kind of taste of like really going into a recording studio. We went to Sound City, which is a famous place here.
Yeah, that's a pretty good first place to get your wings. Yeah,
it was pretty exciting because also as a kid I was in bands and we rehearsed. There used to be a rehearsal place there too across the way, and so we always dreamt like you'd go rehearse and you'd go peek in the studio, or you could go in there and grab a cup of coffee and like, oh my god, I want to be in here. Like,
that's so cool. So you got to be in there in your first professional gig.
Yeah, and I always, like, you know, like a lot of kids, it was about, I wanted to be in a band. I never saw myself, I could have never have imagined that I would be like a session guy. One, I wasn't schooled, and I just didn't think, I don't know, I just didn't think that I was good enough or could be good enough to do that. And so the first, I don't know, maybe 10 years was really just trying to be in bands.
Okay.
And then
what happened with Red Cross with you guys?
You know, I ended up meeting my first wife at that time, and she got a record deal. We had written a bunch of songs. She got a record deal, and there were 2 brothers in the band that fought a lot. And I was like, man, I want to go make music with her. And
literally so and figuratively.
Yeah. And so we, like, she got a record deal. I had 2 record deals all at the same time. Like, and I was like, and I got to do more. I had more of a say in what was going on with her. And so I went there, which also ended up falling apart. And then I think the thing was, you know, I was so, I had this feeling that I had to play music. And even when something would fall apart or not work out, I had to just keep going and figure out how to get to the next thing. And I had a lot of friends that would be in a band and they would get signed, and if that fell apart, that was it. They got a real job, and then that was that. Like, I just felt like I had to play music, and I was going to figure out, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I was going to do it.
So let me ask you this. A minute ago, you said you had a troubled childhood, right? That is not typically congruent with I had to pursue my goals. How do you where did that come from? Like what, you know?
I don't know. I think in a lot of ways, there was a lot of like physical abuse in my house, right? And so I can remember times being 8 or so, I don't know, like getting the crap beat out of me and just thinking like, I'm not going to be like this. I want to get out of here. And it made me like have this tenacity or this drive to like, I don't know. I had a stepdad at one point who he would tell me that I wasn't good enough. You know, it was like, what makes you think you're going to be good enough? There's a million people doing this. And at that time, man, it really drove me. I was like, you know, screw you. I'm going to show you, you know. And it's funny, though, how that same voice shows up later on as a lot of self-doubt. Whenever I'm doubting myself, it's that voice of like, oh, you're not good enough. You're not this and that. But there was that thing where in a lot of ways, pretty grateful to him, because it really made me like, I'm gonna do this. Like nothing's gonna stop me. I don't know what that is. I don't know, because it wasn't for, fame or fortune. It was like, I love this and I have to do this. I don't know. I love playing music. I still love it. And I'm obsessed with it still.
I so relate to what you're saying. I had exactly the same kind of childhood, a lot of physical abuse, a lot of degrading. Yeah. And it was righteous indignation that every time I would like get beaten, I'd be like, motherfucker, I don't know what the end is going to look like, but you're not getting me. You're not going to win this. I promise. I didn't know how to win myself. I had no clue, but I wasn't going to let him win. So I totally get that.
Yeah. And it also, like, it's funny, but I think that made me, I don't want to say a good parent, or like,
of course. Yeah. Hell yeah.
I'm like, I really, like, my kids know that I pay attention. I've never fucking laid a finger on my kids. Like, those were the two things I wanted to be at 8. I wanted to be a musician, and I wanted to be a dad.
Yeah. Well, right on, man. Well, you got them both. Very good job at both too. So how did you get, I'm sorry, I know you've been asked this question. I hope this is the only question you've been asked that I'll ask you. How did you get your session career going after? So you had the first 10 years, you said it was all about being a band. How did you get your session career going? And also, how'd you break into touring? Because back then it was, you're either a session player, and if you're out of town, we forget about you when you're touring, but that didn't happen with you.
No, and it's still somewhat like that to a degree, probably not as much, but I don't know. I had a series of bands that I would, go in and go on the road. I think Red Cross did a little bit of touring, and then my first wife and I split up, and I got asked by this band Circus of Power to go on the road. Went on the road with them, and we did some big tour. And on that tour, we were opening for Alice in Chains, and Masters of Reality was on that tour with Ginger Baker playing drums.
I know.
From that, I met the guys in Masters of Reality. And then when Ginger left, they asked me to be in that band, and I was. And then that's how I met the Queens of the Stone Age guys. And I don't know, at some point in there too, I met Scott Weiland. And Scott, in a lot of ways, was getting to play with him was really cool. It was like, we did the solo record, and he let me play a lot of different instruments. And from that, I met Daniel Lanois, which led to the Willie Nelson thing, which that kind of started getting me. People were calling me, like, for whatever reason, people really loved that Willie Nelson record.
Teatro.
That's how I met Chris Cornell. He called me up because he liked that record.
Wow.
So that record was the start of it. And then I would say when I got the gig with Beck, that's really when it happened, because I think he had a reputation of having good players who were like, could play a lot of different styles. And so pretty much upon returning from that tour, that's really when I started getting calls to do a lot of stuff.
That's great.
And that was, playing with Beck was really like, that was going to school for me,
In what way?
Because he was such a perfectionist, and it was like the first time playing to a click live. I'd played to a click in the studio all the time, but playing to one live, like, there was this whole adrenaline thing, and his music is so complex. And like, I learned about, various degrees of swing. To me, before that, as a young guy, it was like, it's either swung or it's not. He really pointed out to me how, man, you can swing but still be straight. You can there's like this whole field of swing that you could, investigate and like play, and just his music encompassed so many different styles. And the guys in the band, it was beautiful because they were so driven to be great. And every night it was like, let's go out there and be great. They weren't partying, they weren't, anything. And I was already like clean by that time. I got clean at 30, and I think I was like 32 when I got in that band. But there was this this thing to be great every night, and really to challenge yourself, to push yourself. And I love that. And that really, I feel like all the stuff a lot of stuff I learned at that time, and from those guys, and I'm forever grateful.
And it was Lyle on guitar. Who else was in the band?
Lyle on guitar, Justin Meldal Johnson on bass, Roger Manning. That was like the core of the band. And then there was a horn section, background singers, a DJ. It was like, so that also that experience of playing with so many people on stage, like, I don't know, maybe 12 people, is so powerful when it comes together. And like, then the Macy Gray band after that was this huge band. And there's something like when you have that many musicians, like firing on all cylinders, that is just, there's nothing like that.
Well, especially from the drum chair, man, you're driving.
You're driving it. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And it's a lot of responsibility too. You know, that's so cool. So I'm going to ask you about some of the artists you've worked with, Victor. Talk about how you how'd you get the gig? And maybe if you have a cool or interesting story. You said, I think, Willie, you got the gig from Scott, or from playing with Queens?
No, from from working with Scott, we wrote Daniel Lanois a letter and sent him a cassette of the stuff we were working on, because we thought he was the ultimate producer. We were a big fan of the U2 stuff and his solo stuff that he had done. And he wrote us back at the end of it, basically, and he came and he mixed it, and then even went on the road with us for a minute.
There's a video I saw. Sorry to cut you off, but there's a video. You're a good guitar player.
That's like what I like. Yeah, I played a lot of guitar. Matter of fact, the first time Rick Rubin called me was for a session to play guitar. I had brought drums, and he was like, "Oh no, you're going to play guitar." And I ended up playing guitar on a Sheryl Crow track for a movie soundtrack on Big Daddy.
That's so cool.
But then the funny thing about the guitar stuff, I was talking to my wife about this, is that once I really started doing sessions and playing with guys like Dave Levita or Tim Pierce or Lyle, I was like, I'm not a guitar player.
But those guys, but that's like the top
guitar player.
One. That's like the 1%ers, you know, of the world.
Yeah, I quickly saw. I was like, oh, maybe I'm not. Yeah, I'm gonna stay in my lane. You know? I'm good at this. I'm gonna stick right here.
But it was really cool seeing you on that video with Scott. It was you, Scott, and Daniel Lanois. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, do I have I actually said, do I have the wrong guy? I'm like, come on, it's got to be the right guy. It can't be how many Victor Indrizzos.
Yeah.
You know? That was cool.
It was really fun. And then so Daniel brought me in on the Willie Nelson record, and that was like the scariest record ever.
Why?
A couple things. I was newly clean, and there's Willie, like, you know, passing joints around, and like, you know, as a younger guy, I would have, like, you know, been pretty excited to probably smoke a joint with Willie Nelson, but
sure.
That was a true test of, like, you know, am I going to stay clean? Can I stay clean? But if you can tell Willie Nelson, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
And you can get through anything.
Yeah.
But really, like, so for that record, there was no pre-production. We didn't hear the songs beforehand. Willie would play the song one time, no charts, and we would take it. And I remember the only direction from Daniel was, don't play anything typical. So there was in this room, and it's all live, and there's like no baffling. I'm like, man, I just don't want to screw this up. You know? And I have to be creative on the spot, and I have to, like, you know, and so it's that thing of like, I still have that now, where it's like wrestling with the fear in the moment and not letting it freeze you, right? Because if you get into that, you're stuck, right? But like that thing of like getting around whatever that initial shock or like fear, and then being able to execute, you know. I don't know if that answered the question. But.
Yeah, you know, I've talked to get back what you said. I've spoken to a lot of guys who got sober, and they were like, oh my God, my first gig clean. It was like, you know, and you were in the studio, a lot of them are on stage, and they're like, how did you control your mind on that? Because that's gotta, I can't imagine the little guy on your shoulders got to be like, this guy pecking away, and then this guy's trying to, you know.
I just think the shock of the moment of like, I'm looking around this room and, you know, here's like some of my heroes, and like Emmylou Harris was there, and like I'm like, what am I doing in this room? And it was almost like a dream that, yeah, I don't know. And when I got clean, I was pretty damn excited to get clean.
Good.
And
Okay.
I felt like I was on the right path. And having things like that and being in those moments, like, kind of let me know it's like, oh, okay, I'm doing the right thing and I'm in the right place. I just have to like go. And really, you know, I think my story is like, even if you're scared shitless, do it anyways.
Yeah.
You know.
So you almost had it like in your head, you got the gig because the universe supported your sobriety and put you there because of that. Almost.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but like it felt like that. It felt like all of a sudden all the right things were showing up for me.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. You talked about Scott. Chris Cornell, you played on Euphoria Morning the song, I think, Wave Goodbye. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful song. What was that experience like? Or, you know, how did that come about?
It was pretty neat because, you know, it's funny, like a lot of the guys like Scott Weiland or Chris Cornell, or like a lot of the Pearl Jams and all of, like, I got to meet all of these guys, but we were like the same age. And so when these bands came out, I wasn't like as impressed by them as maybe I should have been. Like in the moment, it was just like, oh, they're just another guy in a band or whatever. And
sure.
And I thought Soundgarden was cool or whatever, but I wasn't like some big fan. But I went, I think it was Alan Johannes who was producing it. And we were in his house and we're tracking. And then Chris is singing right in front of me, looking at me. And I was like, oh shit, like this guy can really sing. And I was like, okay, I get it. Like that's special.
Yeah.
And the song was for Jeff Buckley, who had just passed away.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
And it was, I was really struck by just how talented the guy was, you know, and how lucky to have that moment, like where, you know, sometimes you go in and you play and the singer's not even there, you know,
right.
Maybe they're in another room or you just track. I'd say almost 90% of the time that's the case for me. But to have that experience where he's just like staring right at me and singing, and he was a very sweet man. I ran into him a couple times after that, and he was just a good guy.
That's nice, man. Incredibly talented, man.
Yeah.
Alanis, who I think before COVID you were currently touring with, right?
Yeah. I've been with her now, I think 13 or so years. But that's from Dave LaVita. He was in her band at the time, and Dave and I were doing a lot of sessions in town. And then when her drummer Blair wanted to leave, I think he wanted to stay home to do sessions. And at that time I was like ready to go on the road.
Yeah.
And Dave said if I wanted the gig, I could have it, because he was pretty tight with her. And really, like, I can't say enough good things about her or the people that work with her. She's a beautiful person. And again, it's one of those things where, you know, I wasn't necessarily like a fan, or like I appreciated what she was doing. And now, like, I love her. I love her music. I love what she's about, everything. Like, there's a great thing that can happen. Like, you know, if you meet somebody, it can either really endear them to you and, like, you know, you get it, or you're just like, oh, this person sucks and you don't want to meet them. But, like, just truly a case of like, wow, like an amazing, beautiful soul. It's just,
that's awesome.
I can't wait. I mean, we are still supposed to go on tour. We'll see how that all pans up.
Because Jason Orm is in that band, right?
Yeah, and I've known Jason since I was 15. We grew up in the same town out in Simi Valley, California, and we like played at the Battle of the Bands at a roller skating rink.
Oh my God.
He was like in another band, and he worked at like the local music store, and like I've known him a long time.
That's because I had her on my calendar. Is that so? That tour, you guys are supposed to be coming down here sometime. Is that actually post that big. Let's see here, because I remember I wrote it down.
Yeah.
So maybe over the summertime when it's like the worst time to come down here. It's like August, like in Florida.
Yeah.
But
honestly, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it was supposed to happen last year, and now they're saying maybe fall, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope so, man. I'm sure everybody can't wait to see live. I'm sure fans are just as eager to see live music as musicians are eager to play it.
Yeah, I keep thinking about, we talk about that, like it's just going to be a big friggin' tear fest.
Yeah.
I think the emotion of like actually being in front of people again and having that exchange, it's going to be powerful.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Any other gigs that you'd like to chat about that were memorable to you or nostalgic or meaningful or changed your career or your life?
There was a tour I did with Dave Gahan, who's the singer for Depeche Mode, who I just love that guy so much. And all of us were clean. And it was so, I don't know. I'd say too, he's like one of my best friends. He's like, we've kept in touch. He's just a great guy, and was another one of these guys that like, again, like I was like, I knew people that were like Depeche Mode freaks, and I was like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's cool. Marvin Gaye, like, but then once getting to know him and then playing behind him, and people are just losing their shit. Like the guy is incredible singer, incredible like front person, and just an incredible person. Like,
that's great, man. How long did you tour with him for?
I think we did like an album cycle, so maybe it was a year.
It
was probably about a year. Yeah, we made a record, went on the road.
And Masters of Reality, you played on a bunch of their records, didn't you?
No, I only played on one that didn't come out at the time. It came out years later.
Okay.
Yeah, that I was just like, I was not in a good place. At that time, I was like, at the height of my addiction, and also like trying to come and play after Ginger Baker. I just like was so full of self-doubt, and it was really fun, playing the gigs when I could get past it. But I remember like, yeah, all the drummers at that time were like coming up and asking questions about Ginger, and it just like felt so overwhelming.
Oh, instead of talking
playing
to you,
a reverse paradiddle, like, I'm like, I don't know what he did on that. Like,
yeah.
And I was so young, and I didn't really know my place in things yet.
Sure. And man, playing after Ginger Baker's be a head trip for anybody, sober or not. I mean,
he was so amazing, and I the best thing was that I got to see him play that gig a bunch of times, and he was incredible.
Absolutely, incredible. But did you see the documentary?
Something, oh yeah, Mr. Baker? He was not the friendliest guy.
No,
he was nice to me, but man, what a trip! Like,
yeah, he was total
personality.
It was like,
I mean, to even compare yourself to Elvin Jones. Like Ginger Baker's great, but in my book, he was no Elvin Jones. But
here is the kind of guy reminds you of. I was just reading up on Stan Getz the other day, and someone described Stan, like Zoot Sims or one of these old jazz guys, said, "Oh, he's a nice guy, all of them. Like he had so many different personalities. Like they're all, which I thought, whenever when you mentioned Ginger, I said, oh, that's probably a good analogy for that dude.
For sure.
Victor, top 3 musical experiences that you've had.
Man, I mean, I guess playing with Willie Nelson, going to Russia and playing with Dave Gahan.
Wow, what was that like?
It was incredible. It was just like people were losing their shit. Like, and it was so cool because when I was a kid, it just never seemed like you would get to go there. It was really fun.
What year was that?
2003.
Wow.
2003. That was pretty amazing. I think like getting to hear myself on the radio or something is still like a big thrill. And
hell yeah,
it's pretty funny with my daughters. Like we'll go into the market or something, or say, or in a mall, and all of a sudden you hear something you played on, to me, there's still that thing of like, I'm a little kid and like, I can't believe that that happens, you know.
That's so cool. How do your daughters react when they hear that?
I think they think it's cool. And then also like, you know, I don't know, sometimes they point it out to me or like, you know, it gets pointed out to them, but yeah, I don't know. I think they think it's cool. It's hard to say, you know, especially now that they're teenagers. I don't know.
Oh yeah. If they even talk
I'm
to you,
pretty sure
lucky.
they don't think I'm that cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Russia. I had another drummer, Liberty DeVito, and that was one of his favorite experiences. They went to Russia. He said he couldn't believe the people were so nice and they were just so starved.
Yeah.
You know, he said, I think he said something like, it made me realize that people don't dislike each other. It's governments that dislike
100%.
Each other. You know, he
100%.
said the people couldn't have been more welcoming and more or nicer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I never heard this before. I want to talk about something I heard you say in an interview. And I thought it was really cool. You said that you keep your drums low in your headphones when you're doing sessions. If you could talk, that was really fascinating why you do this and how you came up with this idea.
Well, I think, you know, when I first started recording, you know, and sometimes I couldn't have control of the drums. It's like, I think that music should be communication, and that's what it is, right? And
totally.
If I can't hear everybody else and I'm only thinking about myself, it's like, that's not a conversation. If I spend the whole time I'm talking to somebody just thinking about what I'm saying next and I'm not listening, then we're not having a conversation, that I'm just up my own ass. And so, yeah, I keep them really, really low because I want to hear what's going on. Like and that's how I can react to something. It's like, it's got to be a conversation.
And that's why you're, not to blow smoke, but that's one of the reasons why you're such an in-demand guy, because that's your preoccupation, not not my drum licks, my drum fills, you know?
Yeah, I think, you know, that's the thing. It's funny. I was reading an interview with this guy, Earl Young, who's a guy who played on like all the Spinners stuff and a lot of this Philly stuff. And he was like, yeah, I was never out to be like a fancy drummer or play fast or do all these tricks, but like I wanted to play songs and I love music so much. So it was never about like trying to be the fastest or like the fanciest, but about how can I play a song. And really why people love music so much is it like it expresses this thing we can't express in words a lot of times, right? And so yeah, I revere that. And I think that, yeah, I think that's the key. Like if you're hiring a musician, you just want to make a track feel good, right?
That thing you just said is, I've never heard that put so eloquently. Music expresses what can't be expressed in words. Writing that down, then.
Right, because you put on your favorite record or something, or you put on something, it makes you feel something, right? The first 2 seconds all of a sudden can hit you in a way that it's like, man, this is like either if you're sad or you're happy or whatever it is, it's like this thing that's like this extension of your feelings, right? That's like you don't have to say anything, you just like it washes over your whole body, and it's like it's the most beautiful thing. Like, so that in that way, it's like if I'm only thinking about myself, I'm not going to be thinking about the song, and therefore I'm not going to be able to do the job that I'm supposed to do.
So tough question. Are you like that outside?
I think so. I think that I am a good listener. Yeah, and I think I'm a good communicator. I don't know, or like, you know, I try to do it like my playing, very simply, kind of dumb, but like.
No, I mean,
you know.
No use saying 95 words if 3 will get it done. Yeah, I'm with you on that, man.
Yeah.
Anything you haven't done yet musically that you'd like to, or anybody you haven't played with yet that you'd like to?
Well, yeah, it's funny. That one's a funny one to me. Like one of my all-time heroes is Stevie Wonder, and on one hand, I would love to play with him, but on the other hand, I know I would be so scared that I wouldn't be able to be my best, you know? And I feel like that sometimes in some scenarios where I'm not as good as I could be. Sometimes like on a movie session, like when I have to read and if the reading is difficult and knowing I'm not like the best reader, I start getting so in my head, or like I just feel like I'm at 50%.
Right.
You know? And I think luckily my 50% can get the job done, but there's just that feeling of like, oh man, I wasn't as good as I know I can be. And I have that feeling that if I got to play with Stevie Wonder, it would be like, shit, it would be too much. But yeah.
Right, we're putting this out to the universe. Stevie Wonder,
No.
Victor Indrizzo.
I'm happy admiring him from
Let me tell you, hook a brother up. Here he goes, man, right here. If it happens, I get to hear that cut. Favorite, this is an unfair question. Favorite musicians you've enjoyed playing with?
Oh God. I mean, I talk about this a lot with my wife, and that I really am so lucky because a lot of my friends, guys I talk with almost every day, are like the best musicians in the world. You know, the Dave Levitas, Tim Pierce, Jeff Babco, Sean Hurley, like these guys, the best of the best. And here in Los Angeles, like you're just surrounded by them.
Yeah.
There's so many great, amazing musicians, and they're all super nice. And I got to play with Michael Landau a couple of weeks ago, and
that's cool.
You know, done a bunch of stuff with him, and I've got to play with Lee Sklar, and like it just all these guys that are just, yeah, I'm very lucky. Like, yeah.
Very cool, man. Give me your top 3 Desert Island discs. No particular order, and just for this minute.
Donny Hathaway live.
Yeah, I knew that would come up. I heard that on a bunch of interviews.
Marvin Gaye. God, it goes back and forth. There's a weird album called Vulnerable by him that's later. It's him doing standards. It would probably be that. And then, God, I don't know, third one, probably be like the Dells or the Spinners' first record.
Very cool. You cool to talk about your sobriety?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So you got sober like 23 years ago, I think you said?
Yep. Halloween, 1997.
Right on, man. First of all, congratulations on it. That's a huge thing, man, honestly. For getting sober and staying sober that long, that's a really big thing. What was the final trigger? And if any of these questions are like slightly uncomfortable, just tell me, we'll skip them. Yeah. What was the final trigger for you as far as like deciding to get sober? And then what was your journey, your road to sobriety like for you?
Well, it was one of those things. It's funny because like I didn't set out to become an addict. And, you know, my mom had warned me, both my parents were heroin addicts.
Holy shit.
And so with my dad ended up disappearing, and I never met him, and came to find out a couple years ago that he had passed when he was 50. My mom, I believe, like switched addictions and became like addicted to like prescription pills and stuff like that. But she told me as a teenager, I started smoking pot, and she's like, that's going to lead to like harder drugs. I'm like, nah, I'll never do that. I'm not. And I was so focused on music that I never thought I would become an addict. I had met tons of people that were addicted to stuff, and I was like, how can you do that? And then somewhere in the 90s, when I got divorced, I started messing with heroin, and then the next thing you know, I'm one of those guys. And I kept trying to get clean, and yeah, it just kept progressing. Like they say, you know, it's like you find yourself doing things you thought you'd swear you'd never do. And I was always like, I'm too smart for this. I know better. I'm not going to do this. I'd seen so many people go down, but the next thing you know, it happens to you. And I would say for me, the thing that really ended up getting me clean was my son. I already had a son. I was a parent at the age of 23. And yeah, and it's funny, I was a funny kind of addict that where a lot of people didn't even know about it. I was super undercover about it, and I would still show up. I'd show up to work. I'd show up to sessions. And a matter of fact, in the 90s, I started getting more work because there were so many people strung out in LA that weren't showing up for gigs. And I would get the call. They're like, "Oh yeah, this guy, he's fucked up and he's not going to show up." And I was just be like, "Well, I'm fucked up, but I'm going to show up, and I'll still do the gig."
So you're like a functional addict.
I was highly functioning. Like I had figured out how to do that. And I think I just had that drive and that love of music so much that I wasn't about to let it get in the way of that. Though ultimately, and by the end of it, I think there's probably about a 4-year period of using like hard drugs. And by the end, it got really, really bad. Hanging out with Scott Weiland, and I was making more money and doing more and getting more depressed because I had checked into a bunch of treatment places, and I would stay clean a couple months and then I would relapse. And after each relapse, I got more and more depressed, and I started having that feeling of like, at first I couldn't believe I was an addict. I was like, man, this is just, I don't know what I thought, like I was a victim of circumstance or some shit, or like, I don't know. And each time it just got worse and worse. And then my ex-wife found out about it, and she wasn't going to let me see my kid. And
wow,
I was just like,
that's heavy, man.
I got clean because of him, because honestly, at the time I didn't care enough about myself. And so it was really the thought of losing him. And yeah, I mean, now it is for me and for him and for my children.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really hard. And I got to a place where I tried to kill myself. And the guy that is my sponsor still to this day he saved my life. He really did.
Wow, man.
He kind of didn't give up on me. Like I was going in and out of all these treatment places, and he just kept coming at me. And at the very last time, he had pointed out to me, he's like, I know you think you've done this and you can't do it. He's like, but you've done it your way, and that had served me in a lot of areas of my life, right? This stubbornness, this kind of drive to do things, and I'm going to do this and that. And he goes, why don't one time you try just taking some direction and see what happens? And in that moment, I was so desperate that I did. And then I got clean, and also the lesson for me applies to music, is that I was trying so hard to make something happen as a younger guy. And when I let go and just let what was supposed to show up, then things started happening. And it's this weird little, I don't know how to explain it really, but like, when I could let go of it all and have this shit show up that was supposed to show up, it showed up, instead of me trying to force something to happen. And I like, that's the thing I think about now with a lot of things. It's like, if it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen.
You don't have to be as willful.
No, and it's like in music, like I can't call somebody up and say, hey, hire me. You need to do this. I want to work. I want to do this or that. It doesn't work like that.
No,
it doesn't work like that. You have to just go play, do the best you can. If somebody hears you or hears about you, the things that are supposed to show up.
Yes.
That's.
Wow. You know what, man? First of all, thank you for sharing that. That was really kind of you to share that. And I think it's very helpful to people listening that are struggling as well. But a couple of things you said I really related to, because of my fucked up family. I told you I went to the ACOA program.
Yeah.
And what I learned in there, you just articulated it. You said, I was doing things my way that always worked. Well, the problem is when you grow up in a bad place, you develop these survival skills that serve you really well during that time. The problem is once you leave that environment, nobody steps in and says, hey, man, you don't need to do that shit anymore. You don't need to be so willful. You don't need to have that wall up. Everybody's not trying to fuck you over. People are kind. There's none of that. So you go into adulthood with those same what served you as survival skills, but they're not survival skills anymore. They destroy you.
Exactly.
And I learned the same thing from going through that program. It's like, don't be so fucking willful. Let things go and just be happy. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a hard thing to do, to digest. I remember when I went to that program, I'd be reading like 2 pages and I'm like, oh man, I'm exhausted. It's not easy going through those programs.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not something somebody wants to do, or like, I don't know, but like really, I still go to meetings. I sponsor guys. I'm involved with it, and really, I love it. I have a passion for recovery, like I do music, I would say.
Well, it's done so much for you. How almost can you not have a pat? I mean, look at a better life you have. I mean, so one of the things I want to ask you with for me, a very tough thing growing up in that environment was asking for help. Not because, oh, I'm Craig, I don't need your help. The word was just not in my lexicon.
Yeah. I have that too. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, and so like, I never mind helping others, but I just like the help valve. I just didn't think it was open for me. I was because you know what it's like. The people who are supposed to help you don't do anything. You're just like, oh, okay, I'm on my own. Cool. I got it. Was that tough for you to ask for help?
100%. It's still tough, to tell you the truth. Like, and I think I don't know if you've ever heard of this. When I was in Nashville working on stuff, a lot of the musicians were into this thing called the Enneagram. Have you ever done that?
No.
Do an Enneagram test. Look it up. It's spelled with an E. But it describes your personality in numbers, basically. And I'm a 2 with a 3. And a 2 is somebody that is very helpful to others, but has a hard time taking help themselves, right? And I still have that to a large degree. And that's something I wrestle with. It's easier for me to do for others than it is to do for myself. And I mean,
to ask someone to do for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. And I would say that's still the case sometimes, that's just a hard thing. But
but you accepted luckily, help with the program though.
I did. And I had this amazing person, my sponsor, this guy, Sonny, was so loving and kept coming at me in this really cool, loving way, and then also kind of fucking with me at the same time in a very funny way. He'd be like, yeah, man, I just called the cops. They're on the way. I'm like peeking out my window. Oh my God, no. But he was amazing and has shown up for me like nobody else and didn't want anything from me except to help me out.
Yeah. My wife was like that with me and I never could take that in. Yeah. Ever. And it would always be, I was just not open to it. I mean, and just a loving kindness. And then when I started going through this program, I realized what a dick I was being. But here's this human being just wants to love me and put good things like your sponsor did with you, put good things in my life. And I couldn't take it because I wasn't there. I wasn't there was that, the self-defense, that was that survival skill. That was like, I'm not exactly it. I'll let you get close. You get a pass more than others, but not that close, just because it's you think, vulnerability means pain ultimately. So you're boom, shut down. Yeah, I totally get
that. It's a lifelong thing. And I think, that was the thing that I wanted with recovery too. I was like, let me go to a rehab, go to a couple meetings and I'll be done with this. But right. The news, the good and the bad news is it's like, for me, it's something I have to do the rest of my life. And there's so many different layers. And even now, after 23 years, there's still things like that thing of accepting help or being open. There's so many things that are so ingrained that it just takes a really long time to get through them. And it evolves. And hopefully each year gets a little better.
Yeah. And your awareness of at least, and I know I the same thing for you. I'm sure, your awareness of, if I feel a certain way, okay, I understand I'm getting triggered or whatever word you want, I'm feeling like this because of this, or, relates to this that happened 50 years ago, but so be it. At least you identify it and you're, I'm not an asshole anymore.
Yeah. But there's that next level, right? Because that's been my thing. It's like, okay, now I recognize it, but then if I don't do something about it, then it's just as bad as not recognizing it after a while. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still work on that shit, man. It's lifelong, and there's stuff that becomes ingrained in you from when you're a child, right?
Yeah.
Like good and bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good and bad. You're going to walk with that shit the rest of your days. And like, hopefully you get a little better at it. Like, so
thank you.
I think of it just like music. It's like, if I look at music like I'm done and I've learned all that I can learn and I'm not going to get any better, then like I'm dead in the water. It's
yeah.
I need to keep growing. I need to keep learning. I need to keep trying different things. And I think that's just life, right? You should always be a student.
School's never out for the pro, man. That's what I always say. Yeah. I want to ask you one more question about that, because you said something in an interview. You offered some really good common sense advice about how to handle situations when you feel overwhelmed. And I think a lot of people would benefit from that, if you remember what you were talking about.
I don't know, because there's probably a couple different things, but really, like, for me right now, if I'm in a work scenario or even in a life scenario, if I'm feeling overwhelmed by something or telling myself I can't do it, I stop, I take a deep breath, and I just kind of just go, all right, nobody's going to get hurt here. Like, we can do this. I'm meant to do this. I can walk through it. Right. I think the tendency is to try and run away from things instead of walk through them. And, I just try to walk through it and do the best you can do,
And you also talked about sometimes it's much easier. And I agree with this 100%. Instead of looking at this thing, you kind of break it down, you eat the elephant one bite at a time, sort of.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's like in anything, that if there's a complex piece of music you're looking at and you look at the whole thing, like, oh my God, I can't do this, man. Bar by bar,
right.
Count, whatever. Like, yeah, I don't know. I probably said something good and I'm not saying it now.
No, that was it. But yeah, it's like, break it down. No, man, that was great, man. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I really appreciate it. It was very kind of you, man. Thank you for being so open. And I think a lot of people have these things going on, whether they're an addict or not. I think if you've had pain, you have some of this shit.
Yeah, we all have a lot of stuff. Like, it's hard being a human being sometimes. Some days it's easy, some days it's hard. And but I would implore anybody that's struggling with addiction to seek some help.
Yeah, totally.
And be open. Like, there's a better way.
Yeah,
we're all gonna die anyway, so it's like, fuck it, let's try and live.
Might as well just be happy. Right? Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's what I tell my kids. My kids, when they said my younger son is he's 28, but he went back to school as an adult, like 2 or 3 years ago. And he goes, Dad, I won't have my degree till I'm like my early 30s. I said, hey, guess what, man? You're going to be your early 30s anyway. Might as well have a degree. Right.
Exactly.
I mean, don't worry about that. You're going to get there anyway. You'll be happier with a degree than without a degree, and a skill set. So,
sure.
In addition to getting sober, maybe tell me 1 or 2 things you've done or 1 or 2 changes you've made that have had a big impact on you. Could be business, professional, spiritually, personally, anything that was important to you.
Say that again slowly.
No. Sorry, man. I never.
I'm teasing.
No, it's me. I'm sorry.
No, I'm totally teasing you. I really.
Oh,
am.
Okay.
I would say, clearly getting clean has made a big impact. Learning to listen and reading a room becomes very important in music, right? If we take this back to music, being aware of your surroundings and escaping the bondage of self, where you're in a scenario and you're only thinking about you. It comes down to communication again. And so if you're in a work scenario, clearly you want to be prepared and you want to do the best that you can do, but you need to scope out everything that's around you. What is this gig you're about to do? what is the emotion you're about to convey? How can you best be on the team and make the team better, right? And so that awareness for me of like, what can I do in this moment to make things better, right? And that can even be if you're traveling. Like, it's funny, one person can set the tone and the mood for an entire thing. And so if you're on a bus with people and one guy's really negative, man, you can be really positive and you can change the whole vibe.
Yeah.
You know, depending, you know, if you walk into somewhere, well, you can't do it now, but it's like embrace people, give them a hug, you set a tone.
Yeah.
You know, and then the people around you, like it just, I don't know, like I noticed that from people that I've worked for that are like, they set a great tone, you know, they make a nice environment. And so that, yeah. And the biggest things in my life that have changed, you know, being a dad and getting clean.
Yeah.
I love being a dad.
Yeah, you also said something in there about awareness, man. I think that is the scarcest commodity that we as humanity lack. And this thing right here has devastatedly contributed negatively. I mean, to the point where, and this happens to everybody, you're driving your car through the mall and people are doing this and they're walking right out and they're not even aware they're walking into ongoing traffic. It's like awareness, man. It's like it doesn't exist.
It's hard. And I mean, the hard part about being a person is you are stuck with your thoughts. This is what you hear the most all the time, right?
Yeah.
And to me, the goal is to get out of this and get into everything else, or be aware of what's going on with my kids, what's going on in the world. How can we be compassionate, man? We all want the same shit, really.
Yes, everybody.
You know, like, let's just figure that out. Be fucking kind.
Yeah, be fucking kind. I'm right. I'm with you there, man.
Yeah.
Tough question. What do you like most about yourself?
I mean, I can say now, I like that I can help other people and show up to get clean, and that I show up. You know, if you have my attention, you have my attention. And I do finally feel like this more comfortable in my skin. This is the best thing about getting older, right? I wish I had this as a younger man, right? But in a musical context, I feel comfortable in that I know what my skill set is, even though I'm trying to improve it, but I know my worth finally. I know that I can show up and I can play on a record and I can make that feel good. It doesn't have to be an ego thing. It's just I'm comfortable and I know that I can do my job, you know.
Right on, man.
And that feels good, you know. And I'll also say there are some days I don't feel like that, you know, but I feel more like that now than ever.
Great, man. Yeah, that is one of the best things about getting older.
Yeah.
You have any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Yeah, I like, you know, I like editing video, I suppose. I like doing that from time to time. But it's funny because, you know, you just go through these periods. Music really, man, in my house, it's always playing. I have speakers in every room of the house. And now since the COVID thing and I like, you know, have a studio at home, I'm obsessed with that. All I think about. It's like reading about microphones, reading about mic pre's, reading about how to EQ something, like, you know, buying records. Like I just still have that same thing as that when I was a little kid, where it's like, I can't get enough of it, you know?
Right.
No, I just can't.
Favorite place you've traveled?
Italy.
Really?
Italy.
What do you like about it?
Well, you know, I have roots. Both my parents' families are from there. And I've been there with a bunch of artists. And then I also got to tour there a couple years in a row with an Italian artist. And, you know, the food, the people, they embraced me in such a way that was so beautiful. And like I went to Naples, and that's where my family is from. I even put my mom's ashes in the water there.
That is cool.
You know, I got like a soccer jersey of the Napoli team, and they like had my name on it. I just felt so loved and so, I don't know, like that I just love going there. I can't wait to go back.
Who is the artist, if it's cool to ask?
This woman named Eliza, and yeah, it was super fun.
That's awesome, man. I hope you get to go back soon.
Me too.
Funniest thing. No, this is a new question I just came up with this morning.
Okay.
And I didn't write it down, but I just thought of it. Do you have a nightmare gig story?
Oh God, I probably have a couple. I have a couple. Yeah. The worst things. There was one thing we were doing for Alanis. I think we were in Brazil. We're playing, and it was like telecast to the country live. And
those audiences are massive as it is.
Huge. She's really big down there. And then all of a sudden, it's being televised to the whole country or throughout South America. And I think I dropped or broke a stick, and I was like, it just ruined the show for me, right? Like, it's funny because I always tell even my son's a great musician. I would tell him, like, he would be bummed if he broke a string or something, like, oh man, you got to let it go and let it roll off your back and keep going. But of course I didn't heed my own advice, and then, let it ruin the show. And then later I looked it up on YouTube to see like where this was and how bad it was. And I couldn't even notice it.
So it's good you learned to listen.
Yeah, I did. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you my most embarrassing session ever, and the worst. And it's amazing that I still get called after this. But it was on a movie session, and it was, sight reading, and I was really proud of myself the whole day. I was like really one of the first times where I was reading, and I was killing it, getting everything first, second take, whole thing. We get to the last piece, and it's in all these crazy time signatures, and I just melted. I just couldn't get it. We ended up having to keep punch in section by section, and I felt devastated. Like, I was so pleased with myself that day up until that point. I was just like, oh man, I can do this. I can read. And then all of a sudden, nope.
Yeah, but those change, like Lyle's record. I'm trying to listen to it and get the
I know.
time signatures, man.
I just wasn't. I don't really listen to music like that so much. I didn't grow up listening to it, so it is odd time is odd to me.
Yeah, it is to most people, I think.
Yeah.
That's funny, man. 2 more questions. Best advice you've ever been given, and who gave it to you?
That I've been given. I would say from Sunny, my sponsor. And I think the advice would really be like, take some direction.
Yeah, that was cool how you put it. You've done it, but how about you've done it your way? How about you try it a different way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you said too, it really does go back to that survival thing, and knowing when that serves you, because sometimes that really does serve you.
Absolutely.
And then sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does the opposite of that. And
so
I would say that's, and I take that even in music, in life. Sometimes just take the direction.
Yeah, for sure, man. Which is easier. I think, like, for me, it's easier for me to listen, because I know I'm not in survival mode anymore. Yeah. Every day isn't like, there's a question I ask you, and I often think of how would I answer some of these questions. And did you ever, or I think the question too, did you imagine what your life would be like? And I never did. I just wanted to get through the day. I was just literally hoping to survive the next day,
Yeah.
But that's not my life anymore. So it's a lot easier to be open to trying new things, because that's not an issue. I'm going to survive the day. I'm pretty confident of that,
Yeah.
So last question, and man, I can't thank you enough. I knew you'd be a great guy to talk to. I knew you were super soulful and so genuine, and you delivered, man. Do you DJ at all?
Right after this.
I was waiting. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is a natural part of aging?
That's funny. That's really a hard question, because I've kind of feel like I've been the same kind of guy for a long time. I even wear, you can't even see, but I wear a white V-neck. I've worn it. I just, somebody sent me a picture from 1998 and I was wearing the same damn thing. Like,
right on. You're like Steve Jobs and Tim Cook and all these successful dudes, man. Hey, that's plan B, Indrizzo wear.
There you go.
Indrizzo wear.
I guess it's just being open and like trying to not be too concerned. You know, this is what has changed actually. For the first time in my life, I'm not plotting and planning what comes next, right? Because I'm just rolling with the punches, and there's more. I have more of a faith in that what's supposed to show up is going to show up for me, which that is very rare. Because even in getting clean and letting go of things, there's still part of my brain that's like, well, what's next? What's the next thing? I got to do this. I got to do that. And like, but really, and maybe that also comes from the nature of being a session guy, like where you can't go out and seek the work just either the phone rings or the phone does not ring.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So,
totally.
I'm super at peace with all of that. And it's like the things that will show up. And it's funny. I can have a week, I'll look a week later and it's like, oh man, I have nothing. What the hell? And then by the end of the week, that week is filled up, or it's
right.
like, or at that. And it's been that way for years now. So it's like a little more of trusting in the process.
Yeah, man. Well, I hope it stays like that, and I'm pretty sure it will. So
me too. Me too.
Hey, let me tell people thank you again for everything, man. I really appreciate it. What a nice conversation. Okay, a couple of things that Victor has going on. First of all, you can check him out on his website. It's Indrizzo Drums, INDRIZZO drums.com. Yeah, he's got a new project with Jeff Babco and Dave Levita. It's called Bill, B-I-L. Really cool music, man. It's like, you know, probably not good to say to a guy who just got sober, but that's the kind of stuff like if you smoke weed,
oh yeah,
you can listen to this stuff. It's very trippy.
Well, you know? It was like a fun quarantine project where I would record one part, send it to the guys, they would record something, and there's no rules.
It's great though.
And nothing's more than like a minute and a half long.
Yeah. And I didn't realize this. I was saying, where'd you get these names from? I guess they're all streets in LA.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're all streets in the Valley. Yeah.
Streets in the Valley. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But it's called Bill. And what's the name of the record? I'm sorry.
Great 1-8.
Great 1-8.
Like, it's on iTunes and Spotify.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
GR818. So it's Babco, Indrizzo, and Levita. Also, if you want to, Victor's got a sample pack that he's just putting together for Yurt Rock. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's a cool new company, and I'm in the process of making all these loops and basically song structures and doing drums and percussion. So basically you could use them to write to or add to your songs. It's a pretty neat company. They have already a lot of great people. There's Joey Warnaker, Blair Cinta, Sean Hurley, great musicians that you can go and get all their samples and stuff.
Very cool. And it's YURT Rock?
Yeah.
Yurt Rock. And also, if you are interested in working with Victor on tracks, and also he does a lot of production, consulting or producing. If you're interested in meeting with him or consulting with him on recording or on drum work, or if you want a lesson and you just want to know how he does something or what his thought process is in approaching something, the best way to do that is to go to the contact form on indrizzodrums.com, or also you can message him on what social media?
Instagram, Facebook, whatever.
Instagram, Facebook. Yeah. He's pretty much like a social media guru. And
I post all the time. That's all I do. Hey guys.
Yeah. And no, but seriously, if you want to meet with him, sorry, I'm having a lost words. If you want to do some consulting or have Victor do some consulting for you on either your drum work / lessons, recording or production, hit him up on indrizzodrums.com or Facebook or Instagram. Anything else, man? Can I sell anything? And Indrizzo wear, man.
Yard work, whatever.
Social distancing, of course.
Yeah. I'm excellent lawnmower.
There you go, man. Have you ever been to this? Do you know Joe Barresi?
I love Joe Barresi.
His studio, it's like a lawn and garden supply place.
Of course it is.
Yeah, I've talked to like 3 or 4 guys. Yeah, I had this studio. It was a lawn and garden, but like way before Joe had it. I'm like, Joe Barresi, like, no, this is before that. But apparently it was a legit lawn and garden supply place.
Yeah, Los Angeles is amazing with the studios and crazy places.
Yeah, man. Man, and I hope to see you down here in Tampa this summer.
Me too.
That would be awesome.
Me too.
Thank you. Is there anything else anything else at all you want to talk about or promote? No,
man. Thank you so much. I really enjoy what you do, and I really appreciate you having me.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for being a guest here, man. It's been a lot of fun. Hang on one second. We'll wrap up. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to this. If you enjoyed it, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much to Victor Indrizzo, man. Very cool shares, and I think people get a lot of meaning out of this. And again, if you want to connect with Victor, it's indrizzodrums.com, and check out his sample pack on Yurt Rock. And most important, especially nowadays, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice. Go play your guitar or your drums and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Brother, thank you for everything, Victor.
Thank you, man.